Okay, welcome to the meetup. So tonight we're going to talk about large language models from Qt that help with QML programming. Somebody else try to join. Here's Nick. Hey Nick, how are you? We just started. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this new CodeLlama-QML. It's essentially what it is. It's a GitHub Copilot for Qt Creator. It's been fine-tuned with lots of different QML files, and honestly, I won't say I'm hugely impressed with this, but I will say that it's something that is going to make QML developers' lives a hell of a lot easier, because a lot of what we find is that there's just not enough resources out there for trying to do QML. So even if you just use this as a learning tool, I think it's worth the effort to try and get it installed. The downside is you do need a commercial license, which can be quite pricey. But the upside is if you're doing any QGroundControl programming, this is great. It's not perfect, nowhere near perfect. It's not going to do huge chunks of the functionality that you want to add to your QGroundControl, but it will definitely point you in the right direction and give you some really good ideas about how you need to do things. Okay. So the agenda tonight is talk about a little bit of the news, which is just a couple of conferences that are coming up in November. The main event is the QGC dev with Qt's CodeLlama-QML model, and then next month we are going to stay in the LLM world, but we're not going to do anything about QGC because I think we've kind of run its gauntlet. And Adam Krawczyk, I hope I pronounced that right, is going to talk about creating a ROS2 MCP. So it'll allow you to fly your drone using ChatGPT or Claude. And that's going to be on November 3rd. So Mike, that might be a problem for you because I know you're probably already going to be in. Oh no, it's November 3rd should be okay because it's the next week. So here we go. Yeah, I'm going to be there the next day. So we have two conferences coming up, two drone-related conferences. We've done an awful lot about ATAC over the last few months. So if you are interested in ATAC and all things ATAC, I would recommend checking out the CIFTAC conference, which is in DC between November 4th and 6th. I've got a couple of developer talks. It's really good networking. It's pretty cheap. There's a lot. It's kind of like if you're not in the Department of Defense side of TAC, it's probably the best conference that's out there. Lots of us can't get to the offsite, so it's a really good resource. And then the other thing is the PX4 Developer Summit, which is in Atlanta on November 10th and 11th, the following week. I have a talk of that too as well, which is a previous meetup that we did. And Mike will be there too as well. So they're the two things that are coming up early next month. So, okay. Sorry, go on. There you go. Okay, so there are two models that I have to say Qt. I can't say Qt. It just seems so lame. So Qt has provided, there's the smaller 7 billion parameters and the larger 13 billion parameters. As with all LLMs use the largest model that you can, which will depend basically on how much memory you have in your machine. I have a pretty hefty laptop, which has got an RTX 3 something chip, and both of them work really well. I have a much smaller HP, and it's just unusable. So you need to have something with a good graphics card in order to be able to use this, essentially. I'm not sure what everyone's level of knowledge is on LLMs. I do a lot of LLMs. We also do another meetup, but I'm pretty sure that everybody's used ChatGPT or Claude. So if you're using ChatGPT, then the model is typically GPT-4 or GPT-5. But even within the ChatGPT infrastructure, there's many different models. So there's embedding models, vision models, and lots of other stuff out there. You can also fine-tune your own model, so you can take information and add it to one of the GPT models, and then you get your own version of the GPT model, which has, I don't know, whatever The obvious one is that everybody talks about is, a customer care thing where you're calling your ISP and it's just going to answer with the obvious questions. Kind of thing that you wouldn't get if you didn't fine tune your model. And that's what we have here. We have a Llama. So Llama is Meta's Gen AI model. So that's the one so we have Gemini for Google, we have ChatGPT for OpenAI, Claude for Anthropic, and then Llama is Meta's Gen AI model. CodeLlama is a version of Llama that doesn't generate text, instead it generates code. And so the CodeLlama 7 billion QML or 13 billion QML, basically what that is that CodeLlama has been fine-tuned with lots of QML code, so that there's not a ton of QML examples out there. So basically it's been trained on whatever the Qt source code that they have, and it does an okay job of giving you certainly good code to start with. So if you open up a Hello World app in Qt Creator, and in this case, just everything's been set up. Okay, I've got to let somebody else in now. Hold on. Okay, so if we open up the Hello World in Qt Creator, assume that we have everything set up. I'm going to show you how to set everything up. We're going to cover that later. And then if you type in something like a blue button with rounded corners and hit the control apostrophe to generate the code, if all goes well, Qt will generate code for the button. So you can see there that there was a bit of time lag on my nice big NVIDIA machine. If you're using a smaller machine, it just takes too long. It just makes the coding, it's a lot slower than if you're using GitHub Copilot. But definitely if you've got a good machine, you're waiting basically half a second, which is great. Okay, and if you've used code generation before, so yeah, basically that's what we get. We get our code, you tab to accept it, you escape if you don't want to accept it, and if you use GitHub Copilot or everything else before, you're going to know that it's the code that it generates is never going to be perfect. So in this case, it was missing an import. I just had to add an import, and then you just do build run, and then it comes up with our little blue button here. And every time that you run it, it's going to give you slightly different code. So like this version is quite different from this version that it generated earlier. So at its most basic, Qt is calling the CodeLlama model, which is hosted locally by Ollama. So there's a lot that's going on here. There's a lot of moving parts. So what I wanted to do is just do like this little sequence diagram to explain how this is all put together. We're going to look under the covers a bit in a second. But this is a little bit harder to set up than if you were just using GitHub Copilot, because the easiest way to get it to set it up is to use a tool called Ollama, which locally hosts lots of these models, like the fine-tuned models that you find on Hugging Face. So the way that it works is Qt Creator. That's the IDE that I was showing you there. I asked it to create a blue button. In the preferences that we set up, we tell it that we wanted to use the Ollama and CodeLlama, so it knows to call an API, which is on your local host. It's going to call the API on the Ollama port. Ollama is basically going to pass that request to the CodeLlama 7 billion QML model or the 13 billion QML model. That's going to generate the code. It's going to send the code back to Ollama, and then the REST API is going to return what the code is to your Qt Creator, and your Qt Creator shows it in the IDE. So it's a little bit more difficult than what you would normally do, because in GitHub Copilot, basically what you have to do is you just have to tell it which model you want to use, and sometimes you have to add an API token. In this case, what we're doing is we're doing this completely free. We are downloading this model from Hugging Face. You can think of Hugging Face as kind of the github.com of all the models that are out there. So if you're not doing a lot of LLMs, there are the obvious ones, the commercial ones that are out there that we mentioned. So that's the Llamas, the Claudes, the ChatGPT from OpenAI. They're all paid for, and then on Hugging Face there are literally thousands, if not tens of thousands, of different models out there that you can choose from. Each of them have typically very specific trainings that they've done. So something lots of vision ones, lots of coding ones. So in this case, this is an even more specific example of a fine-tuned model, which is using the code version of Llama, which has been trained on QML. Okay, all right, enough of that. I'm going to talk about some of the definitions of some of the things that we're using, because a lot of this can get very confusing. So first of all, there's Llama, which is Meta's Gen AI platform. You may have heard that Meta have said that they'd release this as open source. It's not the way that we typically talk of as open source. Basically, what they've done is they said they will give you the model and you can download the model and use it locally. I believe they also tell you what the weights are, so that if you have enough power, you can, train your own model to be another version of Llama. And that's, I guess, what we see all these different versions of Llama that are out there. But you don't actually get the source code of all the stuff that's happening within Llama. But you can download it, you can run it locally, and you don't have to pay any money for it, which is great. CodeLlama. So CodeLlama is the version of Llama that has been trained on lots of code. So if you can ask CodeLlama a question in text, but basically what it's going to do is it's going to reply in code, or more likely what you're going to do is you're going to give it some code and it's going to tell you what's wrong with the code and how you fix it, how you write unit tests, or it's just going to explain what the code is. So Ollama, which is kind of confusing because it's really nothing to do with Llama, or CodeLlama, is a framework, an application that you install on your computer, and it allows you to locally run any of the models that you can find on Hugging Face. So lots of people use it, and just a simple command that you get, and you now have access to these files. So let me just show you what this looks like. So for example, if I want to run it, I run this Ollama, run the Qt company CodeLlama-QML, and it's basically going to run in the background. I can't really tell it what to do here, because it's going to talk to me in code. It doesn't really know what I want to do. But safe to say, if you send it information through Ollama, and I'll show you what the curl command looks like in a few seconds, it's going to respond in the correct way. Let's have a look to see where the thing itself is. So this is Hugging Face. So like I said, thousands, if not tens of thousands of all these different models are here. It's not getting a lot of traction. It's only got 16 downloads this month, so this would definitely be something on the smaller side, but you can get all the information that you want of if you want to where to download Ollama and how to actually run it. And then this is the curl command that it's using to actually do, say, give me a hello world. It has a very different format. It's expecting things in suffix, prefix. So it's got a language, almost like a context grammar, that it's expecting to be able to, it's expecting to receive a command in this format, and then it's basically just going to respond in a similar format when you're finished. So hence the reason why I couldn't get it to do the blue button from the command line. Okay. Let's go back to where we were. So what have we talked about so far? So we've talked about Llama, CodeLlama, Ollama, and then the way that you communicate between the Qt creator and Ollama is you just call the REST API. So it's localhost and whatever the port is. We've talked about Hugging Face. So Hugging Face is, as I said, the best way to, that I kind of envision it is, it's the github.com repo for all these models. So the first place that I typically go when I'm looking for a different model is I'm going to go to Hugging Face to figure out what it is. CodeLlama-QML is a very specific version of CodeLlama that's been trained on lots of QML code by the Qt folks, which is great. Okay, so hopefully now we kind of know what we're talking about. Like I said, it's GitHub Copilot for Qt if you're trying to think of an analogy. And let's see what we need to do to get everything installed. So first of all, you need to install Qt and Qt Creator. If you look at last month's talk, we did a thing on using QGroundControl on Android. So you can basically walk through the same steps in order to get this set up. We'll talk about what you need to do to install Ollama. How do we download the CodeLlama-QML? How do we install the AI Assistant plugin. And the AI Assistant plugin, although we're using it for the QML CodeLlama, it will also talk to lots of different AI engines. So it will talk to ChatGPT if you wanted to. It'll talk to Claude, Sonnet, lots of other ones in there if you want to do it too as well. We're going to talk a little bit about how to configure Qt to make sure that it's talking to the right model, LLM model. And then we're going to clone QGC, and we're going to try and do some simple changes. We have 3 examples that we're going to do. First one is the one I've just shown you. And then the second one, what we're going to do is we're going to delete one of the images on QGC, and we're just going to ask the CodeLlama to replace it and see what kind of thing it comes up with. The third example, which wasn't 100% successful, is I tried to add a crosshairs on one of the images, and it didn't really do too well. We've done this before. Just one of the interns did it in the past, so we knew what the code was supposed to look like, and we tried to get it to regenerate the code. And it didn't really do very good. But it's good to be able to see how you can, like with most LLM models, where you have to kick it a lot in order to get it to behave. So it's it's good practice to be able to get it to do what it should do. Ideally in the future, what I'd really like to be able to do is to be able to get something in Figma and then pass that to the CodeLlama-QML, and then that would generate a lot of the code. We're nowhere near that yet, but I can see it sometime in the future that would be a possibility. All right. So you download Qt from qt.io download dev. We covered how to install Qt in a couple of different meetups. Check out last month's slides if you don't know where to start. I should also note that you need a commercial license to use the AI Assistant plugin. So if you're doing lots of stuff with Qt, this is really helpful. If you're just dabbling in it, they have a 30-day, or not a 30-day, they have a 10-day trial, so I'd recommend doing that. And otherwise, it's whatever the usual price is, or whatever you can figure out with the Qt folks for a license. So you go to ollama.com and download the Windows version of Ollama, or if you're on Mac or Linux, download that version. In order to get it downloaded, you need to just run this command. So you say Ollama run the Qt company /CodeLlama7bqml. If you don't remember that, or you need to look it up, the best way to do it is to go to the Hugging Face, just search for QML, and it's going to pull up the 2 different models. And then you can see lots of information, including how do you get this to work. You can see that it's about 4 gigs for the 7 billion parameters. The 13 is a little bit larger. I think it was 4 or 6. But really, in order to run them, the defining factor is how much memory that you have in your computer. I had a lot of issues trying to get this to work a few days ago. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that it was actually working. So you can write Python code, or you can do a curl command, or you can do whatever you want. You don't actually need Qt Creator to be able to talk to the model, because Ollama exposes everything on, you'll see this localhost here. You see this localhost, and it's 11434. And I'm just got a curl command here where I'm just passing it hello world. I can see that it got it, and I can see that it responded correctly, which is great news. So I now know that it's actually working. So if I have any issues, then the finger pointing is not on Ollama. The finger pointing is going to be at the Qt Creator, which is where we went next. Okay. Okay, so within the Qt Creator IDE, I'm assuming that you've got it installed. You open it, and you navigate to the Extensions tab, which is here. You say Use External Repository, and you search for the AI Assistant. So you click on the AI Assistant. It takes a few seconds. It's going to come up and say an Install button here. Install. You should be good to go. Okay, AI Assistant can let you connect to many different LLMs. So if you want to do, like for example, QML is obviously for QML code. What if you're doing C++ code? So maybe you want to talk to maybe you just want to talk to CodeLlama instead of CodeLlama-QML, because you wanted to generate some C++ code. So what you would do then is you just, in this case, we're choosing the CodeLlama 7 billion QML, and you might want to choose something else. Okay, So to connect to our local LLM, what you do is you go to Edit, Preferences, AI Assistant comes up, and then under the General tab, under Models for QML, you either choose the 7 billion or the 13 billion, depending on what you've installed. Well, actually, depending on what you've got running, because you want to make sure at all times that this is running in the background. So if this is running, then it has something to talk to. So that's basically whatever this one is the one that you attach in the preferences. Okay. In the advanced tab, you want to ensure that the local model server URL is correct. You know, maybe it's not on your machine, maybe it's on a different machine. Typically, I'm just doing this on my own desktop on my laptop. So I know that it's going to be localhost 11434. It's always going to be that for Llama. Couldn't get it to work through WSL, but that's probably because this port was broken. But if you open the port, you could probably get it to work too in the firewall settings. So how do we trigger code suggestions? Well, typically the way that I'm doing it, and that's what I did when I showed you that example right at the start, is you do control plus apostrophe, easy for me to say. That's basically going to, it's going to take whatever you had in the comments above, and it's going to send that as a request to Llama, which is going to send that to the QML model. QML model is going to come back with some appropriate code, and it's going to display it in the Qt. If you want to accept that code, you hit Tab. If you don't accept the code, you hit Escape. And then there are lots of other things you can do on top of that. So there is an inline GitHub Copilot. There's an inline editor, and you can do lots of different things. So you can say, explain the code for me. So that's Control-Shift-A. So if you hit Control-Shift-A, it's going to pop up the same thing that you see in GitHub Copilot, this inline chat. So you can ask it to explain. You can ask it to fix. You can ask it to review the code. You can run some tests, you can do some documentation, and have some inline comments. So lots of different stuff you can do. Again, kind of very analogous to what we're trying to do with GitHub Copilot, if you've used that in the past. So let's go back to our first example. So I'm going to walk through what I had to do for the first example. So you go File, New Project. I'm going to choose Qt Quick Application, give it a name. We're going to default, if you followed what we were doing last month, we had different kits. So we had a kit for desktop, we had a kit for Android. In this case, I don't want this to run on Android, I just want this to run on desktop. So leave the default settings the way they are. This one is running on 6.9.3. You have to kind of back out a bit if you're going to use it for QGroundControl, but for what we're doing for this simple example, it's fine. So once you get that running, this is kind of like the hello world that Qt give you. So you should just see the simple hello world starter projects. If you run this, it's just going to have a window that says hello world. I add a comment here which says a blue button with rounded corners, and then I place my cursor here, and then I do Control apostrophe, and then it's going to go do the request and come back with some appropriate code. So it's kind of like autocomplete on steroids more than anything else. So you got a couple of things that you got to watch out for. You got to make sure that your LLM instance is running locally, that you have configured the AI assistant as necessary. Write a comment with something you want the LLM to add. Enter a new line underneath it. It should start generating automatically, but it could take a while if you're running locally. If you're not using a GPU, it's probably going to take a couple of minutes. If you are using a GPU, it's half a second to a second. And once the ghost text appears, press Tab to accept the changes or Escape to cancel them. And then, as I said, you can also do this Shift Tab, Control Shift A, which will do the inline. And then if you do Shift Tab, it'll also accept changes one line at a time. So if you want to do that, that works pretty good too. And then hopefully we get our blue buttons. Let's have a look at that. As I said, I had to make a import statement here because it loses things. I don't think it doesn't have the context. Okay, so let's see how fast or slow it is. In this case, I have a couple of projects here. I have one that's this starter project, and I also have QGroundControl, which will be our second example. So I said a blue button with rounded corners. Let's just say a yellow button. So next line. 1 elephant, 2 elephants. Yeah, it's pretty good. Tab to accept it. And I'm on run. So let's see, save all. There we go. Okay, pretty straightforward. I don't know if you can hear it, but my machine is definitely moving. All right, so for the second example, what I want to do is get rid of this reset images. So if we go, let me go close the project. I want to use the second project here. I want to use QGroundControl. I want to start QGroundControl. Okay, and under application settings, general, there is a thing for brand image where it's just going to reset the brand image. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this code and then just ask it to fix the code for us. Too many windows open. Okay, so what do we do? If you've been following us for a few months, this should be pretty similar, pretty obvious. So git clone, QGroundControl, recursive, cd into QGroundControl. And then what I typically do lately is, because there's a lot going on with QGroundControl, is that I switch to the latest stable version in Git. So in this case, it's git switch stable D5. And then hopefully if everything works for you, it should work pretty quickly. Okay, so this is, if we go into this file here, so we have all the way UI, app settings module, general settings, you can see that this label button. So what I want to do is I want to delete that. I want it to do something similar to this label button. So what I do is I say button to reset brand images. That's basically what I'm going to ask it to replicate. I will do that in a second, but I just want to show you what it looked like because I've already done it once. So here's the before and after. So the before is we have a label button. The after is it's giving us a QGC button, and instead of it saying reset images, it's going to say reset custom images, which is pretty good. It's not quite the same, but it does work. So although the style you can say isn't quite as consistent as what it was here, the button is functional. But even here, like in the original, like the reset is not the same size as the browse. So it's horses for courses. So in order to get the expected result in a large project with lots of custom types, the model would either basically need to have context for all of the things that are going on in QGC. And it may be possible to do that, but I haven't quite seen how to do that. Okay, I also said I did another second version, which I basically said, give me a label button, and it worked a bit better than too as well, because it actually, you're giving it indication directionally about where you want to go for what you're trying to do. So as with all LLM systems, they train you to give it the data that it needs to give you what you ultimately need for whatever code you're trying to do. Okay, so let's see how that goes. Let's close this out. And I know that I need to go into the general settings file. Going to go all the way down to the end. I am going to comment this out. I've really no idea what it's going to give me, but let's see what I can do. Throw an apostrophe. I say tab. It gave me reset images now instead of reset custom images. Gave me a button. Okay, so let's run that and see what it looks like. Yeah, so not great, but general direction. However, if you didn't know how to do a label button, or if you didn't know how to do a button, then I think this is really cool to be able to, give you okay, what do I need to do to set up a dialogue? What do I need to do to add extra functionality within QGC? Because a lot of times we find that it's really hard to find developers who've really done this. So I'm really hopeful that this will allow us to get the junior developers that we have up to speed way quicker than we have done in the past, by just asking them to do customizations that are beyond the customizations that you get in the custom example. So I'm for the moment I'm kind of like almost 2 thumbs up on this. Not quite, because I think there's definitely work to get going, but so far I'm really feeling that this is something that could teach people how to write QML really quickly. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Okay, so the final demo, which I wasn't really very successful about, I might try to see if I can get this working again tomorrow. I wanted to get the LLM to help us to add some brand new functionality, to add a crosshair overlay image to the video stream in QGC, which is, we did this before for somebody. It's also called a reticle. We have to be careful how we say that. So basically, we kind of have to do a lot more manual work than I thought we were going to have to do. So I just looked for an image for the crosshairs on Google. I just said recticle.com. I added to the resources because I know that it's not going to be able to put that on its own. So I copy it into the QGroundControl resources directory. And then in Qt Creator, I search for the QGC resources.qrc and open it, make sure that it's in there. We've done that before in the custom example. So if you're following along for a few months now, it should be pretty familiar. And then you make sure to fill in the alias of the file as well. Standard practice, just to name it the same thing as the file. Okay, so we have our resource that we put in here. We've got this new thing that we've added, and we're just giving an alias. Okay, so this is what it should look like. So this is the code that we just did to put it in for a client in the past. The file we want to work with is source flight display fly view video. So we kind of gonna make our additions at the end, and hopefully that it picks it up. So the code snippet shown here is an example of a good result. It should center the crosshair. It should, because obviously, that's what a crosshair is supposed to be. Should preserve the aspect ratio, set the height, and source the file correctly. Okay, so one of the things, this is my first attempt. So this is you can see at the top here, this is the prompt that I'm giving it. So at this stage, it'd be almost just as good to just write the code myself. So I knew what I was doing. I would just start writing the code. But if I didn't know what I was doing, I think, again, it's like good indication of where you need to go. However, there are some problems here. First thing is it's got an incorrect source path. So this is where I'm trying to say there must be something in here to give the LLM better context. Haven't figured that out yet. It doesn't have the width property, doesn't make any sense. And the aspect ratio is not preserved. So in the next one, basically what I do is I say, I have an added comment asking it to preserve the aspect ratio of the image, and it just went crazy. The LLM completely went off tangent. And, I kind of give it the benefit of the doubt here. I have the same thing that happened in GitHub Copilot a lot. It's you're getting to know this new tool, so some things work and some things don't. This worked a bit better. So I gave it the source of where the image was and gave it the information, and it came out pretty close. Doesn't have the right width property, and the aspect ratio is not preserved, but at this stage I'm just going to fill it in myself. Not going to go with this example because I'm not going to do this manually. It didn't work the way I wanted to. If I do figure it out, I'll put it up later on during the week. Okay, so there are some caveats for this. So LLM tools can be helpful for generating boilerplate and common code patterns. I think it's really good. It's great for learning QML. So this is an absolute invaluable tool for junior developers who haven't done much QML before. However, the autocomplete and the QML LLMs can struggle in the context of larger projects. QGroundControl is a larger project. So there's custom types, there's non-trivial requests that it has problems with, very similar to what we see in GitHub Copilot. So it's really like every other code generator. It's probably in its infancy, so maybe on the second or third rev, it's going to get much better. It's a good attempt. I really hope that it gets better. Some of the things that you need to know, you need a commercial license. If you're doing QGC, you're probably going to have one of those anyway. But if you're doing QGC commercially, you're probably going to have one of there. But it is quite expensive. You're also going to need a high-end machine because it's completely unusable if you're not using something with a decent size graphics card. And also it's QML, not C++. So a lot of the code that you'll be writing for QGC, for drones, is going to be lots more C++. But there's no reason why you can't hook up the AI assistant to something more appropriate for C++. There are a lot of C++ code generators out there. There are no QML code generators out there other than this one. I did try and ask Claude and asked ChatGPT to generate some code with Codex for QML, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as what I got with Qt. So really good start. Hope it gets better. Okay, so resources. So the two conferences, the information, which is basically the documentation about how you set up the AI assistant. I also have a YouTube in here too as well, which is from a session that at the Qt conference, which is towards the end. It gets pretty good because they're talking about what the roadmap is. So it looks like it's going to be, hopefully they continue with this because I think it's a worthwhile attempt. And this is Hugging Face, where you're going to find it. This is where you're going to download your Qt Creator if you've never learned Qt and Qt Creator if you've never downloaded before. And this is where Llama is. So let me show you all the different things. Then we'll call it a day. Oh, still got it running. Okay, so documentation, how to set everything up. Also documentation on how to get the inline version running. So that's the what we were doing is we were putting a comment in and doing control apostrophe, but you can also get it to have a pop-up, and then you can ask questions with the pop-up. This is come on now. This is the first thing that got me interested in this. I came across this video and I thought, how cool, they've got an LM for QML. So this is in the resources too as well, which there's a good 45 minutes discussion. Plus they have a roadmap for where they're going to go with this. I'm not going to do it now. YouTube giving me more and more commercials. Okay, and then the CodeLlama 7B, and then we have the 13B too as well. So lots of information. Looks like we've got 45 downloads. So yeah, I would recommend using the 13B. Whatever, always go for the larger size model that your machine can support, because you're going to get better accuracy. Here's for downloading Qt, and then this is Llama. So I've been using Llama for probably 3 years now, for lots of different models. If you are fed up paying for ChatGPT or whatever else, I would 100% recommend using this to download the models locally. Again, you need a GPU, but if you do, you basically have free LLMs. You can use Qwen, the Chinese one, which is brilliant. Lots of other ones out there too as well, so highly recommend. Okay, and with that, I am going to stop sharing and see if anybody's got any questions. So shoot, Brian.
Yeah. I just noticed that there are other people. I didn't mean to interrupt. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So CodeLlama is not trained on Qt, correct?
Correct. So there's Llama, which is your typical, text thing where you just ask a questions. CodeLlama is trained on code. So basically, I don't know, whatever the code that Facebook Meta had, so whatever access they had or whatever they went after. But this is, so basically the way that fine tuning works is that you change the weights on because it's a neural network. So you change the weights on the neural network to make it more susceptible for what you're trying to what your requests are. So in this case, it's fine-tuned on as many QML files as they could find. So that way it learns the general structure of a QML file, the general parameters of a QML file, and it's able to give you better QML results. But there is one thing I should say as well. If you look at the, let me go after this too as well, because I was a bit surprised about this when I saw this today. If you look at some of the information on the model here, so this is the 13 billion. It is saying that it's got 89% success score. So, however, that's calculated 100% sure. So it's going to be 90% successful. It's going to give you back more or less what you wanted. But DeepSeek's pretty close. It's 87%. And then this other one is 80%. So I'm guessing that DeepSeek had a lot of QML code put in there too as well. And then GPT-4 is pretty crappy because it didn't have anything in there at all. So
is CodeLlama the part that's trained on Qt?
No. CodeLlama is a framework. So CodeLlama, all it is a proxy.
Oh, it's a proxy. Yeah, for grabbing the. So what's the model at Hugging Face you're grabbing?
So this one is this CodeLlama.
Oh, that's a Hugging. Oh, that's okay. That's so.
That's the one that's provided by Qt. So the way that you download it is basically you install CodeLlama, and then you just run this command. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes, depending, or 10, 15 minutes, depending on your connection. But it's going to be, it's like 5 gigs that it has to download. And then once that runs, it's going to be sitting in the background. That's CodeLlama is the proxy that allows you to talk to. I don't want that. I want this.
Got it. Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they're all called the same name. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, and that's why my notes got a little confused. A little editorial. I also find it interesting that Microsoft bought Git.
Well, they bought GitHub. So
GitHub,
I know why they bought GitHub. At the time they bought it, I went, why on earth did they buy that? But of course, I'm an idiot. They're not. They bought it because they have access to all the public repos there, and they used it to train their version of CodeLlama, whatever that's called.
Right,
well,
right.
They bought it before that. It was.
But I'm pretty sure that's why they bought it. They knew it was coming.
I thought it was they knew that they needed to get in front of developers more. So yeah, it was just a resource. They weren't concerned about the.
Well, it's a really nice side effect if you bought it for something else, and then you can use it for basically having a new industry that nobody knew was going to exist. So I don't know. I have a
it's always for mining. I just don't think it was as I just think they got super lucky. Like they weren't expecting it to be this specifically, because it was way back when they bought it.
I don't know what year they bought it, and certainly the first version of GP2 was 2017 or so. So
sure.
Okay. Anything else, Brian, that I can clear up for you?
No, you cleared up the part that I was a little confused on. Thanks.
So all I would say in a nutshell is super cool introduction to generating code for QML. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. However, the resources for QML are few and far between. So if you have something in your back pocket which allows you to generate code that is more or less correct, I think that's a huge one. Okay. Anything else before I call it a day? All right. Thanks for turning up. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it just might be interesting to note that you can, you could download any of these models that are specific for whatever task you're trying to achieve on Hugging Face. So they have a whole bunch of models for everything.
So text generation, image to text to video, different tasks, depth estimation. There's just so much stuff in here. It's just unreal.
Yeah, people distill a lot of models too.
I guess I was off on the number of models. There's over 2 million models in here.
Yeah, once DeepSeek hit and the distillation method came out, and it was like more readily accessible, people distill their own models on their own code. So
and they're a lot of them are just different versions of CodeLlama, just like we see, but different versions of IBM Granite or whatever the Quen or all the other ones that you can see in here.
But as you mentioned, if you're paying for those API calls from OpenAI or something, I mean, this you gotta look at this and see if one of these models can do it for you if you host it.
Yeah, and also the security issue too as well. So if you don't want your stuff going outside of your network, then using Ollama and making sure that everything is on your network and never going outside of the network is super cool too as well. Although I don't think that applies to Quen. So yeah, double check, trust but verify.
Yeah.
I have a question. Godfrey, you mentioned the commercial license. How much does that cost?
So if you were a small business, you can get it for 600 a year. If you are over $1 million in revenue, it's like $4,000 a year. So quite expensive. Yeah, not cheap. And that's US prices, not Canadian prices. How are you, Nick? Hope all is well.
I'm doing well. Third book is coming along great. Yeah, everything's good.
Hey, if you need anybody to review it, always happy.
Nick,
Yeah,
is
might
that your
take
book
you up
on
on that.
security?
Yeah, it's on drone hacking.
Yeah, sweet. I met you at Expo. I introduced you to Ramon.
Oh,
afterwards.
nice. Thank you. Yes, that was quite the conference.
Okay,
Yes,
guys,
yeah,
thanks very much. Hopefully see you November 3rd so we can do more LLM stuff. This time would be Alex, who's going to show us his MCP for ROS2, which should allow you to control drones from using natural language processing from basically like a ChatGPT interface. See you then.
Thank
Go
you.
Tigers.
Thank you.